Hey, come
Thanks
on
for being
into
here.
our home.
To our home. We're actually in your home.
That's true.
And we're glad you're
are.
here. Absolutely.
Isn't that crazy? We're in people's living rooms or
I
bedrooms
know.
or hanging
I
out.
know.
And they're in breakfast in bed having like their pancakes, and they're like, oh, there's.
Do you think a lot of people are having breakfast in bed right now at 6 a.m.?
Listen, if if someone else is going to make me pancakes, I'll have it at 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m.
This hypothetical guy that's making you pancakes
I
at
have
6
a
a.m.
husband. He's a good pancake maker.
By the way, I
glad
mentioned
you're
yesterday the Yankees woke up. Yesterday in first place, Mr. Freeman, one of our great viewers, happens to be the dad of one of our producers, is kind enough to remind me last night. Yankees now wake up in second place today. We're going to get them today. I want to remind you, Mr. Freeman, 1 week ago today, the Tampa Bay Rays lost power in their stadium, and we had a delayed game. They couldn't turn the lights on.
Now my twins won both games of a doubleheader, remain in first place. Ed, you're used to being in second place, so all is right with the world. You're on Fox and Friends.
Pretty good Yankees.
All is right.
Who's your favorite Yankee? My dad wants to know.
Oh, I think All Rise for Aaron Judge is pretty good. I'm sad that he's out right now.
All right. Whatever that means.
So thank you, Dad.
Well, there's somebody else in the news this morning who's used to also being number two. Wants to be number one.
He was the vice president.
We're not sure.
Yeah, Joe Biden officially kicking things off in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, where he will have his campaign headquarters, we're told. Obviously, a key here is that you want to show strength in a key battleground state. Pennsylvania was one of those states that President Trump flipped red from blue. It had not gone red in a couple of decades. This was a big, big battleground for the president. And if you look at the economy there right now, the state of Pennsylvania has record low unemployment. That's good for the president.
Yeah, the problem with Biden right now is I think he's a little confused, because if you listen to him, he calls for unity, and then right away he calls for division. Take a listen.
I believe Democrats want to unify this nation. That's what our party's always been about. If the American people want a president to add to our division, to spew hatred, they don't need me. They've got President Donald Trump. Our politics today traffics in division, and our president is the divider in chief. Everything that has made America America is at risk. Are we a nation that believes there's a moral equivalence between white supremacists, neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, and those with the courage to stand against them? No, we don't. But Trump does. Are we a nation that believes ripping children from the arms of their parents at the border? No, we don't. But Trump does. Are we a nation that embraces dictators and tyrants like Putin and Kim Jong-un? We don't, but Trump does.
Well, I mean, just factually, is he embracing Kim Jong-un, or is he trying to prevent a nuclear war?
Yeah.
He doesn't know.
Well, that's it.
Down and pushing back.
There was that divisive talk, no doubt. But I closed my eyes. I watched the speech yesterday and closed my eyes because it was actually in the sun. It was a nice day.
Yep.
Listening to it, and I felt like I was listening to Barack Obama. Just a worse version, a less enthusiastic. It was all the same platitudes at the top level. No policy, nothing at all about what he would actually do as president. Running on unity, stopping division. It sounded almost exactly. He wants to run on Obama Biden. That's it. That's what the showdown will be. And the question is that going to work? It was all
because the key issue is always the economy, right?
He's not President Obama, though. The thing is, he's not good at this. He's really, really not good at doing. Anyone trying to be President Obama, and I say that to the Betos of the world, I say that to the Buttigiegs of the world. Everyone's trying to channel this Obama legacy when it came to campaigning. He was really good at it. He was really good at galvanizing a crowd. He was really good at taking those platitudes that we talk about and making them get people excited. Not everybody can do that. Joe Biden can't do it. And let's face it, politics is divisive by nature. Everyone who gets up there and wants to win an election has to be divisive, because you have to say this person or this side is doing something wrong and I'm going to do it right. So the idea that you're going to call for unity and, oh, I'm going to be the guy who doesn't bring division, of course you're going to eat those words 2 seconds later, because in order to win the election, you have to appeal to an electorate, and that is going to be divisive.
That is complicated, and it's also complicated when you want to make the economy the centerpiece of your campaign, because that's what people at their kitchen tables, that's part of what Biden is trying to do with the Obama nostalgia. But maybe he's also going further than nostalgia and rewriting history by looking at this strong Trump economy and saying he inherited it. Watch.
I know President Trump likes to take credit for the economy and the economic growth and the low unemployment numbers. President Trump inherited an economy from Obama-Biden administration that was given to him, just like he inherited everything else in his life. And just like everything else he's been given in his life, He's in the process of squandering that as well.
Is that going to squandering it? Look at the stock market, look at unemployment, look at jobs. Look, there's news reports out just today about wages in key industries raising higher than any time in the last couple of decades. Yep. Run against that, Joe. I mean, trying to sell it as the Obama-Biden recovery that Trump then inherited is just a bold-faced lie that they can't defend.
Well, he's leaving out the actions the president took by cutting taxes, cutting government regulations, which obviously made the economy even stronger than what he inherited.
Well, he has to leave it out because if the reality is it's been successful, and people rejected so much of that Obama-Biden legacy when Hillary Clinton stepped up to the plate, and they didn't want those ideas. They didn't want that anymore. They were saying, this isn't working. I don't have more money in my pocket. I'm not happy with the healthcare system. I'm not happy with so many things. So I'm going to go in a different direction. So he now has to, and that different direction was successful. So he's battling success. It's not easy to battle success.
Yeah, he's floating up here with a generic message.
Yep.
He says he won't attack other Democrats. He's got high name ID, hasn't had a debate, hasn't been challenged yet by the progressive base of his party. Yep. This is probably the high time for Joe Biden. We'll see what happens.
It's teed up for President Trump to say what Ronald Reagan said so many years ago: are you better off now than you were 4 years ago because of this strong economy? So you have that, and then you also have immigration, which this president rode to victory in part in 2016. Think back again, Obama-Biden, I covered them in the 2008 campaign. The Obama-Biden team said in year one of their administration they would pass comprehensive immigration reform and sign it into law. That obviously did not happen, even though they had Democrats running the House and the Senate. The president jumping on this issue, as he often does, tweeting overnight, courts and Democrats in Congress, neither of which have a clue, are trying to force migrants into our country. Our country is full. Our detention centers, hospitals, and schools are packed. Crazy. The president pushing hard on this issue still.
Yeah, I mean, the White House putting out a letter yesterday on this issue, sending it to Congress, desperately hoping they'll actually do something about it. Here's part of what they said in that letter to Congress. They said the situation has continued to deteriorate and is exceeding the previous high-end estimate. It's necessary to obligate funds at a rate that will exhaust amounts currently available to fund services that involve the safety of human life, protection of property, and immediate welfare of individuals. If the amount of people coming is so unsustainable that we can't manage it, and then we don't know where these folks are, it's time to do something about it.
Yeah, and I think you can blame Democrats and the courts to an extent, but you also have to blame Republicans. This is a problem that no one wanted to do anything about. Nobody wanted to touch it because it's a tough issue, and it causes controversy, right? It leads to talking points from folks on the left saying you're racist, you're anti-immigrant, that then you have to tackle. But the bottom line is, at some point, it's not about politics. If you have a humanitarian crisis at the border, if you have the border being flooded, if you have migrants having to be, put on airplanes and shifted to other parts of the country, this isn't about politics. This is beyond politics. This is about security, and this is about a crisis that's happening that's affecting people's health and well-being throughout the country. So put your politics aside and just do something about it.
Biden said nothing substantive about what he would do about it. He's still talking about unity.
Yep.
He's trying to ride above all that because he doesn't want to be pulled too far to the left in a general election, probably. Vice President Mike Pence. We're talking about the past Vice President, current Vice President Mike Pence, giving a commencement, telling graduates right there back in his home state of Indiana to be prepared to stand up and be proud that they're Christian, talking a lot about religious freedom. Watch.
Honor for us to be here. Throughout most of our American history, it's been pretty easy to call yourself a Christian, but things are different now. Lately, it's become acceptable, even fashionable, to malign traditional Christian beliefs. So as you prepare to leave this place and build your life on the Christ-centered, world-engaging foundation poured here at Taylor University, be prepared to stand up. We will always stand up for the freedom of religion and the right of every American to live, to learn, and to worship according to the dictates of your conscience. That's a promise.
Now, Taylor University is a Christian university. They had a couple dozen students walk out during the address. I'll remind you, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, all of those storied institutions, they were once Christian universities, and they left their faith a long time ago. It could happen with any school. So if you're a Christian university, you have the vice president who's an open and proud Christian speaking, and you walk out, I don't understand that.
Yeah, there were a lot of protests that preceded this, but good on these universities who are now facing these protests and are having the commencement speakers come anyway. They're not canceling them. They're not caving to the mob. They're not doing any of that. They're saying, listen, we are providing a forum here. This is a Christian university. We are honored to have. This is still the Vice President of the United States.
That's it.
And at some point, it's like, I don't care if you agree with him or not. You don't have to agree with everything he says. You don't even have to like his politics. But it's out of respect to have someone of that stature come to the university and speak. You should be able to sit, listen, learn your lesson now. If you're in college, you should be able to sit and listen to someone you disagree with. You're going to have to do a lot of that in life.
Right. And there are far too many campuses where free speech is no longer free because they keep drowning out voices. So with that spirit, we don't want to drown out Pete's voice. We are a bastion of free speech here. So Pete, after over a year of lobbying, has finally gotten our producers to allow him to deliver the first ever Fox and Friends commencement address. You will not want to miss it. A speech more than a year in the making. 9:50 a.m. Eastern Time.
And if you're afraid, you're not alone.
To the proud graduates of Fox and Friends University, some short words of wisdom for you on this Sunday morning. Don't miss it.
I'm ready.
Let's try to keep it short. That would be good.
I'm ready. And get a protest?
By the way, I might walk out.
I'm going to hold up a big sign.
I want to see what I might. I don't know. I'm not so happy about it.
What if Ed walks out of my
Oh, boy.
I'm worried.
All right, we're going to go to some headlines for you now. A police officer is shot during a traffic stop overnight. Detroit police approaching a wrong-way driver in an alley. The suspect recklessly backing into two officers, pinning them against a squad car. While running away, the suspect fired at police. They retaliated, striking him 5 times. Police followed his blood trail to a nearby home. He is now in critical condition. All 3 officers are expected to be okay. A frequent Trump critic becomes the first Republican serving in Congress to call for impeachment. Michigan Representative Justin Amash tweeting that the president's actions, quote, meet the threshold for impeachment. But he doesn't list any. The lawmaker stopping short of encouraging Congress to actually begin proceedings to remove the president from office. And the racehorse that was interfered with during the Kentucky Derby rebounds to win the Preakness Stakes.
A late charge from Longshot Everfast to the inside 2, but nothing stood in his way. War of Will won the Preakness. And then it was
War of Will winning the race 2 weeks after the controversial Derby finish. But Bode Express stole the show, throwing his jockey to the dirt out of the starting gate, then finishing the race by himself. Kentucky Derby winner Country House did not run the race. Those are your headlines.
Would have been amazing if the horse without the jockey won. They're like, maybe we don't need jockeys anymore.
Never seen that before.
Got a mind of his own. See, that's what happens, man. Animals
like
run
Pete.
wild.
Mind of his own.
Well, you know.
That is true.
That's why he didn't finish first.
Don't turn it off. As tensions rise between the U.S. and Iran, former CIA Chief John Brennan reportedly planning to brief House Democrats on the threat. Why him?
Former CIA state.
Tensions rising between the U.S. and Iran. Former CIA director and Trump critic John Brennan reportedly scheduled to privately brief House Democrats on that threat. Our next guest warns this move that hold that briefing risks politicizing the entire situation. Here to explain, Fox News contributor, former CIA station chief Daniel Hoffman. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning.
What is your concern about John Brennan? I'm sure he and other Democrats would say, look, he is a former CIA director. He understands the complicated relationship with Iran. And Democrats just want to get that perspective.
Yeah, I think the problem is this, that John Brennan was really just a willful carrier of Vladimir Putin's virus that he injected into our political process. John Brennan is extraordinarily politicized. He made unfounded speculative claims about the president, which really caused partisan friction. I think if we're interested in building a bipartisan consensus for how we defend ourselves and counter the threat from Iran, I don't think this is the right way to do it. I would have expected that maybe Brennan would have been declared persona non grata from the Congress after his unprofessional behavior, frankly.
Yeah, well, in fact, you have an op-ed at foxnews.com about how Putin must be laughing about all of this because you've got not just the fact that Brennan is still this powerful force briefing House Democrats about big issues like Iran, but he and others continue to push this narrative about Russian collusion, which is what Putin wants to hear about when others here in America may want to turn the page.
Yeah, I wrote an op-ed a few days back about that, and what I thought the Mueller report left out was that This was not a clandestine operation from Vladimir Putin. It was meant to be discovered. I mean, you don't buy ads on Facebook with rubles if you don't want to be discovered, or outsource hacking and social media manipulation to the Internet Research Agency run by Vladimir Putin's personal chef. I think Putin knew that if there were Kremlin return address on his operations, then they would achieve greater effect. That's what we've seen, and Brennan, frankly, has just made it that much worse.
And now you have the Attorney General, William Barr, talking to our own Bill Hemmer about how he wants to investigate the investigators and see what Brennan and maybe James Comey and others were doing with the intelligence they had with the dossier, which was unverified. And I ask you then, moving forward, how can John Brennan continue to be this figure that Democrats bring in to talk about Iran and other key issues when his own role in all of this is still under a big cloud?
Yeah, it's just, he's a very divisive figure. Frankly, if, in my view at least, if the Democrats had wanted to drill down on Iran, they would have done better to invite my old colleague Norm Rule, who was the National Intelligence Manager for Iran from 2008 to 2017. He is nonpartisan, he knows the facts, and he could have provided the Democrats with, I think, all of the perspective that they would have needed without the politicized bias that Brennan brings with him.
All right. Daniel Hoffman, we appreciate your insights this morning as always.
Thank you.
As the crisis at the border intensifies, meanwhile, Brian Kilmeade got an exclusive first-hand look in a ride-along at the border. We bring you that next.
Welcome back. Some quick headlines for you. Caught on camera edition. 2 police officers are dragged several feet as a suspect speeds away.
Get out of the car.
I'm coming out. I'm coming out.
Getting out.
I'm coming out. I'm coming out. Go. Get out. Get out. Get outside.
Both officers suffering minor injuries in New Jersey. The suspect now behind bars. And look at this shocking video of kids speeding down a Chicago highway in off-road vehicles.
Hey, what are you guys doing?
Someone reportedly called the highway patrol, but both kids were gone. Oh, man.
Somebody's in trouble. Meanwhile, crisis at the border hitting a breaking point as officials struggle with extreme overcrowding at processing centers.
In an effort to help, Homeland Security has flown nearly 1,000 migrants from the Rio Grande Valley, also known as Ground Zero for illegal crossings, to nearby Del Rio, Texas, and San Diego.
Our own Brian Kilmeade got a first-hand look visiting with Acting Deputy Chief of the Rio Grande Valley. Take a look.
What are we seeing right now?
What you see is what should be a parking area for the McAllen Border Patrol Station, but instead you see multiple military tents.
You're looking at a facility that should be handling 300, maybe 350 people max. It is now handling multiple thousands of people. Take a look. These are people being held, just picked up off the border. In fact, this whole tent complex came up in the last 36 hours because there's just no place to put them.
Currently we're holding over 8,000 people. We've already caught over 1,000 today as of noon. We may set another record for apprehensions today.
And the reason why this is full is because where you're taking me now.
We're in the McAllen Station area of responsibility, the busiest station in the United States Border Patrol. We're going to an area called Rincon Village. It is ground zero on the entire United States Southwest border.
Have you had the caravan situation?
We have a caravan come through here every 5 days, and we have been for 2 years. So as you can see right up here, we've already got some family units. This is currently going on 24 hours a day. They're coming across the river and they're just walking up here.
Where do you think they're from?
Let's ask some. ¿Cuántos años tiene él? Tres. So she's from Honduras, and this is her son that's 3 years old.
How long did it take him to get here?
¿Cuánto tiempo viajaste de su país? She says 15 days.
15 days. We asked how they found out they should come.
En la televisión. So she heard on television, right? Bring your child and you'll get papers and get to walk.
Now that she's here, what does she think is next?
No sé, por medio de una entrevista.
She just says that she knows she's going to get a permiso and somehow she'll get on a plane and get to New York.
Is she right?
Yes, she is right. She's going to end up there somehow.
Why is she coming now?
She just says it's bad in her country and that she knows right now is the opportunity to come.
It's amazing. I mean, everyone's got a different story, and even though they're great stories, we're just not equipped to handle it. It's just not the way you do it.
That's true, Brian. That's what's happening. The immigration system was not designed to operate like this. There is an orderly way to apply for asylum. to apply for immigration benefits. This is not the way to do it.
And until Washington can work out, it's your responsibility. And that's got to be frustrating.
It is.
These people are nice people in many cases. They have the individual stories, but that is not the story.
And that is the truth, Brian. Our people, the agents that work here, I'm a father, most of them have families. This tugs at anybody's heartstring. This is really a humanitarian piece. But from an enforcement perspective, while we're standing here right now, there are people that want to get away from us just a couple miles upriver.
You're a parent?
I am a parent.
And you know that cough, right?
Absolutely.
He needs some medicine.
And they're going to get it. Trust me, we have medical contracts. Anybody that's even remotely sick, we're taking them to the hospital because this is America. We're going to do what we need to take care of people. Life, safety, and health is first.
How old is the baby?
¿Y cuántos años tiene su bebé? 4 months.
4 months.
Yes.
Wow. It's beautiful.
Gracias.
And tired.
Gracias.
Look, here comes some more right now, right? So I told you, they just come up the road.
They're coming in the country.
Yeah, they just got dropped off by a smuggler. Where are these guys from?
Cuba.
Oh, so another issue, Cubans. Even though 70% of the people we're currently apprehending are from those 3 countries, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, we've already caught people from over 55 different countries.
We're trying to get in the car.
We're trying to leave, and so we just saw the 3 Cubans. Now here comes the next group.
My image is it's brush and people sneaking through on hands and knees. Instead, this is a road.
It is.
This is a system.
This is a system.
So, Chief, you brought us to the Rio Grande River.
So while we were up with the family unit over the radio, there was an agent down here and saw some smugglers trying to bring something across the river. We weren't sure if it was aliens or narcotics. He was asking if anybody was available to come help him work this traffic. They weren't, because the agents were up there trying to secure that family unit.
And that's it. That's Mexico. And you believe there's people there with binoculars, men in there with binoculars, scouting out their move. And is their move when it gets dark?
24 hours a day. They don't have to wait for dark.
It's amazing just how it's an operation. You know, and the smugglers they've got all these chips. They got the binoculars here, sending somebody here, send family units here and distract agents if you can, because they've got to deal with that situation. And then there's that open road where it's just a road they're walking right down.
Yeah. One thing not to be forgotten, too, is the horrific situation that so many women and children, and Brian highlighted that, go through. I mean, there are women that face sexual assault in alarming numbers. You saw there was a sick child there. One of many of these children get sick along the journey. So when we talk about a humanitarian crisis, those are the faces that you need to be thinking of. These women and children that are in particular, of course, men as well, but it's hard to see a sick child. It's hard to see these women facing sexual assault because it's being incentivized for them to come here, and the conditions are quite poor. So when you talk about border security, you're talking about protecting those people from enduring a journey that is completely unsafe for them.
Yeah, you know who takes advantage of this overcapacity? The drug smugglers, the cartels, the gang members. Those are the ones that are sneaking across, not caught by Border Patrol. All right, well done, Brian. Vice President Pence defending his faith as the war on religion rages on in America. Our panel weighs in on the freedom of religion. Coming up next.
What is this? Some kind of one-of-a-kind Hawaiian vacation? Kind of. Sweet, fluffy King's Hawaiian buns on 3 new Arby's sandwiches.
Did the island thing look real?
I don't think so.
Arby's, we have the meat.
For sandwiches.
As you now have 76,000 points as part of the loyalty program, there's a 5% discount applied to your hotel room. $120 for the night, please.
Oh, 5% off as well as free Wi-Fi. Not bad.
$95 for the night, please, sir.
Wait, what?
If you use Trivago, Trivago will compare hotel prices from hundreds of websites worldwide, so you can often find a better deal for your hotel room. And also free Wi-Fi. Maybe you should try Trivago next time. Hotel Trivago.
With Rakuten, everything you buy means money back for the things you really want.
Why did you invest in gold? Are you living in the past? In a digital world, gold shouldn't weigh down your portfolio.
You know, the truth is we live in a time when religious belief is under assault. We've seen unspeakable acts of violence against religious communities. You know, throughout most of our American history, it's been pretty easy to call yourself a Christian. But things are different now.
That was Vice President Mike Pence telling new graduates to stand up for faith during his commencement address at Taylor University in Indiana. What happened to religious freedom in America? Well, our panel joins me now to discuss. Our religious panel, Pastor Robert Jeffress, Senior Pastor at First Baptist Church, Kanta Ahmed, Muslim scholar and author of In the Land of Invisible Women, and Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean at the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Rabbi, I'm going to start with you. We've seen rhetorical assault. We've seen physical assault. It seems that people of faith are not able to speak out or be as open as they have been in the past.
Well, there's no question that the twin pillars of American life have been from the beginning separation of church and state and full freedom of religion. That's under assault by lone wolf terrorists, but also by others who are adopting a European model for whom freedom of religion means freedom from religion.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to politely and directly struggle and fight against. We have every right to have our values be put forward and hopefully validated and maintained as an important, unique part of what makes America great.
It's a great point. It's never been freedom from religion. It's freedom of religion. Now, Pastor, before I go to you, I want to play some sound from Bill Maher's program, predictably anti-religious often. Here's what he had to say about the Catholic faith. Listen.
We thought he was old school, an institutionalist. What happened to Bill Maher? I'll tell you what happened. In 1950, he was born into a strange cult, and he's never been able to leave. It's called Catholicism. This creepy substrain of Catholic conservatives who think limited government means government should put a limit on people's sex lives.
Pastor, I'm sure he'd say the same thing of Baptists. What do you say to that?
Well, I've actually been on Bill's show, so I know all about that firsthand. Look, whether we're talking about ridicule from comedian Bill Maher, or we're talking about all-out attacks on Christianity that we saw Friday from Pete Buttigieg, who compared Christianity to radical Islam, what we're really seeing is an illustration of what Vice President Pence talked about yesterday at Taylor, and that is it's becoming fashionable to ridicule and shun Christians. And frankly, if it stopped there, we could handle that. I mean, we're big boys and girls. But it never stops with ridicule and shunning. Ridicule and shunning are precursors to the marginalization of Christians and ultimately the elimination of religious liberty. We're seeing that in San Antonio here in Texas. The San Antonio City Council has banned Chick-fil-A from serving at the airport for committing the sins of contributing to the Salvation Army and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I mean, that is outrageous. Fortunately, we have a president who understands the very real threat against religious liberty, and he is committed to protecting religious liberty, not just for Christians like myself, but for all Americans like my friends here on this panel
today.
For
all faiths. Dr. Ahmed, to that point, I mean, our nation, any reading of the history books, you know, was founded mostly by Christians, but enshrined freedom of religion. That's what they fled, was persecution. Your reaction to the status of religious freedom in America today?
Exactly. I mean, first of all, we were gifted the Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson, who thought about the imaginary Muslim who kept a Quran in his library to understand how to protect religious freedom for the most exotic of believers at that time. And as a Muslim, I have a particular debt to Christians, which is twofold. I had a Christian education as a child, but also without Christianity, there may have been no Islam. The Prophet Muhammad, in his early part of his life, was sheltered by a Christian king in Abyssinia. So to see this kind of demonization, Bill Maher embodies the social hostility that is rising against Christians in the United States. And let's not forget, Christians are the most global, most dispersed, and most persecuted religion in the world. 80%, I repeat, of all religious persecution in the world is directed at Christians.
Well, unfortunately, very well said. Unfortunately, we are out of time. It was a quick one this morning, but you guys all nailed it with the time that you had. Thank you for your time and providing clarity on the issue of religious freedom this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Jed, over to you.
Thanks, Pete. We're going to give you some headlines right now. Conservatives claim stunning victory in Australia's election. Despite trailing in the polls, Scott Morrison wins the race for Prime Minister, holding off Liberal opponents who focused heavily on climate change. The devout Christian focused his campaign on the economy and jobs. Police now identifying the student allegedly plotting to shoot up an Oregon school. 18-year-old Angel Diaz is accused of carrying this shotgun into the classroom underneath a black trench coat. Fortunately, football coach Keenan Lowe stopped Diaz by wrestling him to the ground. He's being held on a $500,000 bond and is due in court tomorrow. Bill de Blasio's 2020 campaign has some wondering who will replace him as the mayor of New York City. One newspaper is suggesting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. A New York Sun op-ed claims the Democratic Socialist would be a perfect fit for the role. And shocking video of Arnold Schwarzenegger drop-kicked from behind. Take a look. Terminator actor attacked from behind at a South Africa sporting event. The man was quickly turned over to police. On Twitter, Schwarzenegger said he didn't realize he was kicked until he saw the video.
Whoa.
Ooh, Terminator down.
No, Terminator not down.
I love the Terminator,
Who
by
gets
the way.
drop kicked in the back and just like,
Yeah.
get away.
They better not try that with Adam Klotz, because as we know,
that is
he's
true.
a pretty
Adam-
tough guy. Let's go to that extreme weather, because we've got at least 10 tornadoes carving a path of destruction across the southern plains. Of violent weather now taking aim at states throughout the central U.S. Adam is here, tracking all of that. Good morning, Adam.
Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, unfortunately, we are talking about a little bit of severe weather that began last night, yesterday evening, lingering still here early on this Sunday morning, all being fueled by really a lot of warm air that's piled up just off the Gulf of Mexico. You're looking at temperatures still very early this morning, mid-70s running up to 80 degrees. That is what's fueling some big storms across this region. We've seen it over the last 24 hours, some tornado-warned storms across portions of central Texas, up into Oklahoma, and currently this line is moving across Louisiana into Mississippi, all areas where we're still seeing tornado watches in place. That doesn't mean there's currently a tornado. It just means the ingredients are there. So from central Louisiana running up into Mississippi, all spots where you could still see tornadoes this morning. Now, eventually that winds down. This entire system lifts a little farther to the north, and we're going to be tracking an area across the Midwest, eventually into the Mid-Atlantic and into New England. I don't think there's going to be tornadoes as likely today, guys, as at least when we get through these early morning ones by the time we get in this afternoon. But it's still a big system, and it's something we're going to be paying attention to throughout the rest of the day.
Yeah, impact. So we've got this big town hall tonight in New Hampshire, anchored by our own Chris Wallace, moderated, with Pete Buttigieg. And he started out as sort of this breath of fresh air, right? You know, he's a different kind of politician. He's a mayor. We've never elected a mayor or president. As you get to know him a little bit more, he starts saying things that make you go, yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk to voters there briefly with Todd Pyro. Before we do, this sound caught our eye. He was on Hugh Hewitt's radio program. Here's what Mayor Pete Buttigieg said. Listen.
Should Jefferson Jackson dinners be renamed everywhere because both were holders of slaves?
I think it's the right thing to do. You know, over time you develop and evolve on the things you choose to honor, and I think we know enough, especially Jackson. You know, you just look at what basically amounts to genocide that happened here. Jefferson's more problematic. You know, there's a lot to, of course, admire in his thinking and his philosophy. Now, we're all morally conflicted human beings, and it's not like we're blotting him out of the history books or deleting him from being the founding fathers. But, you know, naming something after somebody confers a certain amount of honor.
Right, and there are certainly Jefferson having slaves, big problem, different time.
Yeah.
But he was also the principal author of the Declaration of Independence.
The Declaration of Independence.
That small document. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you can evolve on this issue, and I think it's great. You know, slavery is an unfortunate, dark part of our history that we all acknowledge, and we all know that. But you can't rename everything, and you can't remove people from history and practice this revisionist history just because there was a dark period. Yeah, that was not a becoming aspect of Jefferson. Everybody knows that.
It's what our schools are about, unfortunately. Thankfully, the commencement address today will fix all of that. They're going to have to rename Jefferson Starship now, too. You can't know Jefferson anywhere. Let's bring in Todd Pyro live at Dusty's in Claremont, New Hampshire, ahead of Pete Buttigieg's town hall. TV's Todd Pyro.
Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, there's a definitive book by John Meacham on Thomas Jefferson that maybe Mayor Pete can read once he's done with today's town hall, but that's the reason we are here. We're talking to the voters in advance of that town hall right down the road here in Claremont, New Hampshire, and we're going to start off with Dave. Dave's a small business owner, and I asked him about Mayor Pete. He said, like, even though he's ranking third in the polls here in New Hampshire, Mayor Pete really didn't resonate with you. Indeed, you thought the Democrats were handing this nomination to Biden. Why?
I feel that, like they did with Hillary, it doesn't matter who is the front runner, who's getting more votes. It's the party that's really electing them.
All right. Interesting. Now, you did not vote for President Trump in the primary, but now, taking a step back, looking at your small business, as a small business owner, you said you love what Trump has done with this economy. Why?
I've seen things pick up dramatically. I've had my best year last year in 7 years. I went through 5 years with Obama with nothing, with it stagnant, no increase in my bottom line. Trump has really worked hard. He's kept his promises, which I've been very, very satisfied with.
And what I loved, you said, I didn't vote for him to be my father. I voted for him to get results.
Exactly. Right. I voted for him to be the president, to lead the country, and he's done a great job doing that.
Dave, thank you. Let's go over to Grace, retired hospital worker. Even though you're in New Hampshire, it was in the great state of Connecticut where you were the hospital worker. You want to talk immigration. You like the president's idea of merit-based immigration. Why?
I do. Because I feel at least if we have the merit, the people will want to work. They'll want to do they'll come into the country and they'll do better by the country. It won't be just leeching off the government and getting all their handouts. Right now, all we're getting in is the illegals, and they're not trained. They just want to come in. They want to have their babies, take more and more from our country. We cannot sustain it.
Just quickly, what's your take on Mayor Pete in advance of the town hall?
I haven't thought too much about him. I'm really not that interested in any of the Democratic candidates. Probably Biden a little bit more than him, but not really a Democratic person.
All right. Well, we got through two. We have a lot more voices you're going to hear coming up in a few minutes. For now, we'll send it on back to New York. Again, guys, it's crazy to be back in New Hampshire. I haven't been here since 2000 when I graduated college right up the street here. It's wild.
Well, it's great. And Todd, we'll be getting to you throughout the morning. I was wondering about that cowboy behind you, but now I realize it's a statue. So maybe we'll get a little history of that.
It's a statue, Ed.
All right, good.
Not a real person, Ed. Not a real person. Although I will ask some questions.
I would like to see an interview with him.
Thoughts on Buttigieg?
Can't wait for the answers.
Oh, yeah, look, he's
look at
very
this.
vocal.
He's all over
Quite
the
vocal.
All right, Todd, we'll be getting back to you.
Todd.
Thank
We'll
you.
check back with you soon. Well, summer is in full swing on the Fox Square.
You know, the truth is we live in a time when religious belief is under assault. We've seen unspeakable acts of violence against religious communities. You know, throughout most of our American history, it's been pretty easy to call yourself a Christian. But things are different now.
That was Vice President Mike Pence telling new graduates to stand up for faith during his commencement address at Taylor University in Indiana. What happened to religious freedom in America? Well, our panel joins me now to discuss. Our religious panel, Pastor Robert Jeffress, Senior Pastor at First Baptist Church, Kunta Ahmed, Muslim scholar and author of In the Land of Invisible Women, and Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean at the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Rabbi, I'm going to start with you. We've seen rhetorical assault. We've seen physical assault. It seems that people of faith are not able to speak out or be as open as they have been in the past.
Well, there's no question that the twin pillars of American life have been from the beginning separation of church and state and full freedom of religion. That's under assault by lone wolf terrorists, but also by others who are adopting a European model for whom freedom of religion means freedom from religion.
Yeah.
And that's something that we have to politely and directly struggle and fight against. We have every right to have our values be put forward and hopefully validated and maintained as an important, unique part of what makes America great.
It's a great point. It's never been freedom from religion. It's freedom of religion. Now, Pastor, before I go to you, I want to play some sound from Bill Maher's program, predictably anti-religious often. Here's what he had to say about the Catholic faith. Listen.
We thought he was old school, an institutionalist. What happened to Bill Barr? I'll tell you what happened. In 1950, he was born into a strange cult, and he's never been able to leave. It's called Catholicism. This creepy substrain of Catholic conservatives who think limited government means government should put a limit on people's sex lives.
Pastor, I'm sure he'd say the same thing of Baptists. What do you say to that?
Well, I've actually been on Bill's show, so I know all about that firsthand. Look, whether we're talking about ridicule from comedian Bill Maher, or we're talking about all-out attacks on Christianity that we saw Friday from Pete Buttigieg, who compared Christianity to radical Islam, what we're really seeing is an illustration of what Vice President Pence talked about yesterday at Taylor, and that is it's becoming fashionable to ridicule and shun Christians. And frankly, if it stopped there, we could handle that. I mean, we're big boys and girls. But it never stops with ridicule and shunning.